On a grand scale, the pulse of the ice ages is mirrored in the coral family tree. Strong currents caused isolated corals to return and merge again into fewer species. During ice ages, reefs were dominated by just a few corals. Right now, sea levels are high. That means corals remain isolated and they're hybridizing into more new coral species, and that's what we see today at Raja Ampat. Corals are helping redefine exactly what is a species, and that means understanding staghorns has got a whole lot simpler. All species that hybridize with each other are now united as superspecies. This means that what were hundreds of different staghorns are now linked in networks of around 20 superspecies. But this is just the beginning. Here at the equator, there may be many more hybrids and more superspecies awaiting discovery. Could these networks also be found among reef fish? Many fish families are so large and diverse, anything's possible. The wrasse family ranges from giant predators like the humphead wrasse to tiny cleaner wrasses that pick parasites from the gills and the scales of their clients. Fish wanting to be cleaned drift passively with fins lowered to signal that they are ready. Some cleaners are juvenile wrasses that give up cleaning when they grow too large. But there are many other jobs among the 185 species in this family. Rock-moving wrasses turn over broken coral to feed on small animals. They're trailed by a yellow checkerboard wrasse, which specializes in claiming their leftovers. A juvenile rock mover looks nothing like its parents. In the wrasse world, changing shape and color as you grow is quite normal. So is changing sex. Among wrasses, it's always females that become males. This is a mature male crescent wrasse. He's blue now, but a year ago, he was a green female. Appearances can be deceptive. There could be hybrids and superspecies hidden among the wrasse family, but proving it will be no easy task. When giant mantas come to the reef edge, adult crescent wrasses hurry out to meet them. These giants, up to 6 meters across, gather here to be cleaned of parasites. But the current is exceptionally strong, and some of the cleaning gang have difficulty catching up with their clients. It's most unusual to see fully grown wrasses reverting to the cleaning role of their youth, but a giant manta loaded with tasty parasites is an exceptionally large opportunity. Back on the reef, other specialist groups include the guild of pointy mouths, with tweezer-shaped jaws designed to probe crevices and nip coral polyps. Butterfly fish, Moorish idols and bannerfish all make their living in this special way. But on the reef, it pays to be adaptable. Many of these pointy mouths lead double lives beyond the reef. Out over the reef edge, cliffs drop vertically over 1,000 meters. There's an explosion of life here as sunlit waters of 29 degrees mix with upwelling, nutrient-rich cold waters. Out here, butterfly fish dine on plankton swept up in the water column. The upwelling brings more than plankton. It also brings mysterious giants from the deep. Sunfish rise from feeding grounds far below to warm up and digest their food. The huge fish are crawling with copepods, parasites that feed on blood and mucus and make their hosts very uncomfortable. But bannerfish swim out from the reef to relieve them of their burden. The 3-metre sunfish hovers as if in a trance, while more bannerfish arrive for a parasite banquet. The cleaners' pointed mouths are as sharp as forceps. Eventually, the sunfish has had enough of the painful skin treatment and departs. One group of fish have an enormous impact on the reef itself, and far beyond it too. Parrotfish, with their powerful biting beaks, are coral predators. They grind up the coral skeletons with bony tooth plates in their throat to extract nutrients from polyps and algae. But all the ground-up coral has to go somewhere. Parrotfish convert coral into sand. Bleakers parrotfish travel in schools, filling the water with the sound of chomping and a blizzard of sandy waste. Huge bumphead parrotfish are the most prolific sand makers. Their beaks are powerful enough to attack massive Porites corals, leaving deep scars. Bumpheads can even shear off the arms of staghorn corals. Each one chews a cubic metre of coral a year, and most of it becomes sand. The entire group of sand makers could smother the reefs. But most sand is swept away by currents. It accumulates where there are eddies to form the shimmering islands that the equator is famous for. So parrotfish create new places for long-distance travellers to rest and breed. They also create a completely new underwater world. Juvenile striped catfish seek food among the sand grains. They're protected by venomous spines, vital defense when feeding in the open. Out here, the most diverse group of fish are the gobies. The signal goby also sifts for tiny creatures. It has evolved eye spots on its dorsal fin, the same distance apart as the eyes of larger predators. The open sand has few hiding places, so the mural goby has to dig to conceal itself. It works hard, but all the movement attracts a predator. The wobbegong shark waits for the goby to let its guard down, just for a moment. One way to defeat predators is to find an ally. Shrimps are tireless diggers, but they have poor eyesight, whereas gobies have excellent eyesight and can warn the shrimps when to hide. The horn-headed sea snake is persistent, but eventually it must surface to breathe. White sands aren't the only sandy environment beyond the reef. The region is dotted with volcanoes. With such powerful volcanic forces at work, the coastline and seabed have undergone turbulent upheavals. Over the past 50 million years, the seabed has been twisted and torn by shifting tectonic plates. But during all these convulsions, there were always safe havens for corals and shallow sunlit waters in the equatorial Indo-Pacific. When volcanoes erupt, reefs are often destroyed by lava or smothered in black sand. But in the tropics, a clean slate never stays clean for long. Mantis shrimps are early arrivals from nearby reefs. This one cradles an egg bundle. It isn't long before a new generation of mantis shrimps sets up home out here. Over generations, they could become new forms and new species. There are 34 species of mantis shrimp around Raja Ampat. There might soon be one more. An emperor shrimp arrives as a hitchhiker on a sea cucumber. The shrimp picks spare food from the sea cucumber's feather mouth. Both animals are unpleasant to eat, so they're safe out on the bare sand. Strange new species of burrowing fish are being uncovered all the time. Some recent arrivals aren't camouflaged to match the black sand. Out here, just as on the reef, camouflage is the most obvious way of adapting to the new environment. A black anemone has evolved here. And of course, there are matching coloured clownfish. Clownfish lay their eggs on a hard surface. Out here, saddleback clowns push a shell under the anemone as an egg-laying platform. They work hard to keep their eggs free of silt. Trickery is rife on the black sand. Anglerfish use a lure, which is a modified dorsal fin, to attract fish to their last meal. Many anglerfish are impressive sponge mimics, until a yawn gives the game away. This one has evolved to match volcanic rock, but the same species looks just like a yellow sponge. With all these differences within one species, it's near impossible to work out who is related to who. But once they settle, anglerfish camouflage is perfect, and the trap is set. Some use the opposite strategy. Bold colours warn to stay away from nasty spines. Raja Ampat's mollusks are famous for their bright colours. Sea slugs have no protective shells, yet are not bothered by predators because they're very toxic. They absorb poisons from sponges, hydroids and other animals. There are more sea slugs in this region than anywhere else, and most advertise their toxicity with outrageous displays. Such bold warning colours are so successful that others have borrowed the idea. Yellow striped fish known as sweetlips are commonly seen hovering above the reef. But their juveniles couldn't be more different. They mimic the colours and even the swimming style of sea slugs. Juvenile sweetlips are not poisonous at all. It's just trickery. This outlandish scorpionfish is a weed imitator. Its weedy fins break up its outline, making it unrecognizable as a predator. Once again, in species-rich Raja Ampat, a winning adaptation leads to a whole array of other scorpionfish and lionfish evolving variations on the weedy theme. Perhaps this is another superspecies waiting to be discovered. The most astonishing mimics take on the appearance of dead leaves waving in the current, something no predator would look at. Even the wrasse family has a leaf mimic, with a modified fin that looks like a stalk. But the presence of leaf imitators means leaves, and the proximity of another great tropical habitat, mangroves. The leaves fertilize a vast coastal food web that draws many fish into the murky estuaries and rivers. The Indo-Pacific is mangrove capital of the world. Under the equator's oppressive heat, over 50 species of mangrove trees colonize the border between land and sea. They dominate the tropical coastline where conditions are too silty for corals. It's been recently discovered that mangroves have hybrid forms. So perhaps there's a superspecies in their family tree as well. This murky world is the realm of a very successful goby. Mudskippers are fish out of water, absorbing oxygen through moisture trapped around their gills. When the tide drops, it slides on the mudflats and sucks up algae. It's an endless food source, but how does this little fish avoid being grilled under the equatorial sun? Now the goby digging skills are put to good use. A mudskipper excavates a swimming pool large enough to keep itself moist for hours, until the tide allows it to return to the shade of the trees. But Raja Ampat has mangroves that are special. Here they grow in waters that are clear. Mud is absent. To find mangroves growing side by side with soft and hard corals on clear shallow reefs is most unusual. Familiar characters of the reef like clownfish, cleaner wrasses and crescent wrasses live alongside mangrove dwellers like half-beaks and archerfish. It's very strange. But then Raja Ampat is at a unique crossroads, where marine life from the coral reef, mangroves, coral sand and volcanic sand all meet and mingle. Strange, new evolutionary relationships are bound to unfold here. To take better advantage of the currents, soft corals even perch on mangrove roots. But in the darkest tangle of the mangroves, there are no sun-loving corals. Here are found a family of fish so amazingly adaptable they've matched virtually every environment Raja Ampat has to offer. Inside the mangroves, each cardinal fish species schools at different levels. Brown at the bottom, and orbicular cardinals near the surface. Cardinal fish are mouth brooders. The fathers constantly turn the eggs in their mouths until they're ready to be spat out, like these young. Their early lives are spent close to their parents, and they will never travel far from the mangroves. Back in the sunlight, pajama cardinals have specialized to shelter in the arms of staghorn corals. Because they too are mouth brooders, their eggs are never set adrift on currents. The male's care keeps their young close to home and closely adapted to life among the staghorns. Just below the mangroves and coral gardens, cardinal fish have adapted to living with a surprising partner. Out on the sand, there are urchins. And living between their venomous spines are frost-finned cardinal fish. They travel everywhere the urchin travels. It's a good strategy. Straying from cover is always perilous. The most specialized of all are Bangai cardinal fish. They're the ultimate stay-at-homes found only around Bangai Island. They compete with clownfish for an unoccupied anemone, but the larger clowns soon expel them. And the cardinals are driven away from cover and into the path of a stonefish. It's all about survival of the fittest, and cardinal fish are real survivors. There are now 109 different species. Cardinal fish have been shaped by predation and competition and larger forces like changing climate and sea level. All of their new species have arisen through natural selection. Ideas of evolution by natural selection go back more than 150 years, to when Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace studied the wealth of life around the equator. And scientists at the equator are still refining those ideas. The latest notion that some creatures interbreed, hybridize, and exist in networks or superspecies is another bold step forwards. Raja Ampat is right at the crossroads of current flow and gene flow around the equatorial oceans of the world. Of all the places to observe and study evolution in action, Raja Ampat's sun-drenched reefs of riches are the perfect biological laboratory. Who knows what may be discovered here in the future?